Me and Melo go way back to my sophomore year in high school to his junior year in high school. We met there and had a little bit of a friendship that I knew could continue.
We know we're family, we're brothers, but as competitors, we're coming after each other.
LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony have been best friends for more than 20 years and fantasized about playing together for quite some time. Well, according to LeBron James, quote, "The time is now. I want you. We have to make this happen." And they sure did make it happen. Carmelo is signing a one-year deal with the Purple and Gold. Here he is at his introductory press conference discussing the criticisms about waiting too long to team up.
I mean, for years we've always laughed about it and spoke about it. What it would be like. We had a little bit of, experience with the USA basketball and playing together, but that's totally different than in a situation like this. But we've always talked about it, laughed and joked about it. But I thought and he thought at this moment now, everything comes back full circle for us, and I think the time is now for us to be on the same team. It couldn't have came at a better time.
You're 37. LeBron's going to turn 37 in December.
We don't care.
Dwight's up there. Trevor's up there. Mark Gasol's up there.
Don't care. We make our own narrative.
Age ain't nothing but a number. Max, I'll start with you. Is Melo enough for the Lakers to bring home the title?
No. He's not enough for the Lakers to bring home the title. It's not a knock against Melo. It's just that the Brooklyn Nets exist. And if they are healthy, they have too much firepower. And the Lakers are constructed imperfectly, though they did an amazing job in the offseason. Carmelo was an excellent pickup, I think. To lead your second unit, he has real value. I don't know about in the starting unit. I'm guessing Wayne Ellington starts and maybe Gasol or maybe Carmelo does and they play a smaller lineup. I don't know. But as a leading scorer in the second unit, Carmelo's a really good job. But this doesn't actually affect his legacy that much if they were to win a championship. And Stephen A., this should be when you talk about the pressure on Russell Westbrook this year, Carmelo should serve as a reminder to Russell Westbrook of that pressure every day. Because even if they win a championship, it won't be with the real Carmelo Anthony. It will be with an old, diminished Carmelo. I want to be very clear. When I thought he was cooked, I was wrong, and he was right. He proved his point in Portland. He is a valuable piece in the NBA. On a good NBA team, he can still play. Okay, I want to make that perfectly clear. But this is not Carmelo Anthony of half a dozen years ago. The point of that legacy was when you are still a truly great player, can you be one of the 2 or 3 best players on a championship team? Can you, he doesn't have to be the very best, but can you be a second at least on a championship team? And he didn't do it. Maybe he could have done it. Carmelo is an exceptionally excellent player. So maybe he could have done it. To be fair to Carmelo, he never quite had a championship team around him, did he? But he didn't do it. He wasn't in that position. He didn't put himself in that position, and no one else did either. And so now he's no longer, when we talk about Carmelo Anthony, we're not talking about this guy when we talk about him years from now. We're talking about that guy. That's why the pressure when you talk about Westbrook is on Westbrook now. Because if Westbrook eventually wins the championship as the 5th best player on a team, that's not what we're talking about. That's Gary Payton, an all-time great. But when we think of point guards who won championships, Gary Payton doesn't jump to mind among the very best, and he was one of the very best. Even Jason Kidd, I want to be clear about this. Kidd is on the fence. He won a championship when he was still really good. Was he still Jason Kidd the way he once was? Even that, to me, is borderline. It's not like what Isaiah Thomas did, for example, or what Steph Curry did, for example. That's the pressure right now on Westbrook. I think Carmelo serves as a reminder.
I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong about that. And here's why. First of all, when you talk about Jason Kidd being on the fringe, you can say he was on the fringe, but the reality was that Dirk Nowitzki was at the top of his game. And the fact that you're going up against elite competition, which was the big 3 in Miami, says something about it. Remember, we didn't think that Jason Terry was better than Jason Kidd. we understood that the Dallas Mavericks, as constructed, along with being exceptionally well coached, as a team ended up upending LeBron, Bosh, and Dwayne Wade in their first year in Miami together. So nobody views Jason Kidd on some fringe of anything. That's a Max Kellerman narrative. That's not anybody else. That's number one. Number two, when you think about Melo, let's look at what we're talking about here as we look at the Los Angeles Lakers. Is LeBron James a top 5 player on the planet? Yes. Is Anthony Davis a top 5 player on the planet? Yes. When you look at Russell Westbrook, a walking triple-double, as he is presently constructed right now, look at what he brings to the table. He's box office. He plays at 100 miles an hour. He goes after it. We all know what he brings to the table. Carmelo Anthony was never viewed in that light. He was a prolific scorer, a career 24-point-per-game scorer up until a couple of years ago. We knew what he could do offensively, and he was special in that regard. But when you talked about top 5 players on the planet, Carmelo Anthony wasn't in that conversation. And so now we fast forward to 2021-22 season. And what do we see now? We see a dude that's fresh off of shooting 40% from the field, a dude that averaged 13 a game last year after averaging 15 a game the year before. All right, COVID and all of that other stuff that was going on, C.J. McCollum being out, all of these different things happen. But in the end, when you look at Carmelo Anthony, he's a 6'8" perimeter player. You still look at him in that regard. Clearly, you can look at him and say he's not what he used to be. I'm not trying to act like that's not the case. But this precipitous drop-off that everybody tried to put out there about him when he couldn't get a damn job in the league, and then he ultimately ended up being interviewed right here in this studio with me, looking for a job. It was utterly ridiculous and insane that he was ever subjected to that. And what did LeBron James do at that particular moment in time? The answer would be nothing. LeBron James should have had Carmelo Anthony as a teammate. I understand that Carmelo ultimately ended up going to Portland. I understand that LeBron James had to come in there and say, now's the time. We got to get together on this. But easily the argument could be made. This is something LeBron James should have done years ago. LeBron James has had at least a couple of opportunities to have Carmelo Anthony as his teammate at least a couple of years ago, particularly and specifically when Carmelo Anthony was unemployed and nobody in the league wanted to touch him. And LeBron did not make that happen. Now that he's on the Lakers, let me tell you this. With LeBron, with AD, with a guy like Russell Westbrook who's going to create open shots, don't sleep on Malik Monk. Don't sleep on Horton Tucker. Don't sleep on these brothers if you give them wide open shots, because you've got to prioritize defending the big three. They can do some things for you. That makes them a championship contender, and I'm happy that he's in Los Angeles, and I think he makes them better, not worse.
First, when you say that's my narrative, let's put it this way. I'll give you a spectrum of credit given to point guards who won championships. You can disagree. Isaiah Thomas gets more credit for his championships as the point guard than Jason Kidd does because of where Isaiah was in his career at the time. It was very clear Isaiah was a great player who was probably, I would say, and it was a very good team.
Pause before you go on.
Yeah.
Pause before you go on.
Yeah.
My point is, I understand what you're saying about where Isaiah is. What I'm saying is, in Jason Kidd's best day, still, Dirk Nowitzki was on another level.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
That's what I'm saying.
You can be the second best player on the team. I mean, had Kidd done it a few years earlier, I believe he would have gotten more credit when he was more at the height of his powers. He was still an excellent player because he was a great player, but he was no longer what he once had been, in my view. And therefore, Isaiah, on the spectrum of how much credit you give guys for championships, right? Isaiah's over here, Kidd's over here, Peyton's is over there, right? It goes on that spectrum. Peyton gets the least credit because he was least close to his prime. And my point for Carmelo is, yes, it'd be a nice thing for him to win a championship if he contributes as a valuable runner of the second unit offense or focal point of the second unit offense. He will get real credit. If he's an 18-minute-a-game player who plays sometimes, he will get less. But at any rate, it won't mean the same to his legacy as had he done it half a dozen years ago when he was
And
one
I'm
of the
saying that
very
depends
best players
all I'm
in the
saying
league.
is that depends on the team. Like, for example, if you're talking to me about Carmelo Anthony in the role now compared to when he was with New York or Denver, that's a given. But what I'm trying to say is that, Max, if he averages 20 to 25 a game, if he averages 20, 25 minutes a game, right? Let's say, for example, he averages 15 to 18 a game. And come playoff time, and particularly the finals, that's the brother you go to in the fourth quarter that's drilling 3 or 4 perimeter shots. I'm saying to you, that's going to be a very valuable component, and nobody's going to be talking about a drop-off because that's what we were accustomed to seeing from Carmelo.
I agree. I think that is an unlikely scenario. I'd root for it to happen because contrary to popular belief, I do root for Carmelo Anthony. He was the one guy in 25 years who was like, I want to go to the Knicks when I used to root for the Knicks, and I always appreciated that. So I would hope that you're right. I'm saying, I bet you I would say the odds are against that Carmelo is an 15 to 18 point a game scorer this season, and in the playoffs is even better in critical moments. But it would take something like that for it to really have an influence on his legacy.
Yeah.
LeBron and Russell Westbrook. Who on the planet Earth is going to get Carmelo more open shots than those two?
Yeah. Listen.
They'll get him open shots.
Absolutely. I have a different mindset. I'm happy for them. What a blessing to be able to play with someone you love in your 19th season. That's incredible. Anybody that gets to work with their best friends or family, those kind of situations. Yeah, his 19th season. Earlier. Yeah, his 6th different team. And the Lakers have the second best odds guys to win the title behind the Brooklyn Nets. Let's keep it rolling. To the NFL we go. The Saints will be without Drew Brees for the first time in a long time. Is there drama brewing?